Hello and welcome. This is Tambra Harck, and I welcome you with so much anticipation and gratitude to this first ever podcast for nuVolutions. nuVolutions is a mystery school that serves those among us who self-identify in the 5 soul groups of this time of great change. I imagine that finding yourself here in whatever way that you did, that you know that we're living in a time of great change. That's not news. And the chances are good that knowing that, you may also feel a sense of participation in what we are, so many of us, being called to bring the changes in a course that may be different than the way we've done it in the past. So let's talk about that for a second. And then let me do this. Let me first of all say thank you for joining me. I know that this is the first of what will be many, 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 many conversations that we have together. I know that there is a very likely chance that you are an important part of what we're creating in the world today. That you play a significant role in creating lived experiences of heaven on earth. Now, what we used to do when we wanted to create heaven on earth is we turned to history. We turned to ancient scripture. We turned to the poets. We turned to the mystics. We turned to the dreamers. And today we're being called to turn to all of them, or us, as the case may be, and many others. So nuVolutions in the podcast, which by the way, the podcast may get its own name, but right now we'll call it nuVolutions Podcast. nuVolutions is a gathering of the 5 soul groups of this time of great change. Those among us who have a deep understanding or a sense of a calling or a way of being able to see and be in the world today that helps facilitate us creating a change in the way change happens. Now, this podcast is going to be a conversation between us, and I have some things to share with you or teach. Now, while I'm a teacher, most of what this show or podcast will do is not really deliver content for you to study or to learn. I know that you come to this platform of your life and your role in this time of great change with so much wisdom, with so much experience, with such capacity to participate in the ways that you are uniquely called. So the ways that I'm going to be teaching are more a way of shining a light of understanding into these 5 soul groups so that you might identify yourselves, perhaps, among us. And there's a lot of room in each soul group. So this is not a personality test or something that you will necessarily say, that's what I am and that's the whole story, or I'm none of those things. The likelihood is that you'll feel and hear and know yourself to be parts of perhaps many of these soul groups, if not all of them. And that in the knowing about them, you'll also be able to recognize your kindred spirits around the planet. We're looking through new lenses today than we have ever looked through in the past. And we're being called to look through even newer lenses and look through the lenses we've had in different ways. A friend of mine from many years ago often talked about the kaleidoscope. And I'll borrow her metaphor here for a moment, that if you can imagine that, the lens through which you've been able to see and participate in changes in the past or even in this moment, if you turn that kaleidoscope, you change your perspective on the experiences that you've already changed. That's what we're being called in to do today. Now, much of what I'm talking about is a very vision-oriented perspective at the moment, but I'm going to talk to you about how you are a part of something so courageous and so magnificent and so magical and so tender and so joyous, which are all things that I would say are ways to describe heaven. As we bring the experience of heaven on earth right down into our bodies, right down into our families, right down into the way we do business, right down into the way that we care for ourselves and our surroundings and our planet, right down to the ways that we teach and learn and experience life. That's heaven, when we bring magic and joy and love and courage, and the words go on, right? Right down into the life you live today. And as we do that, I'll leave that with a pause for a second. Sometimes I get excited and I run right on to the next idea, but as we do that, as we create moments, even just glimmers of moments in our days, in our families, in our homes, in our work, in our study, as we bring those glimmers of heaven into those moments and we become aware of them, we can then expand them and recognize those moments in others. And one of the reasons that I love that this, they call this morphic resonance, what I love about that is that the more we can attune to or be present for the vibration that will create the change we are so desiring, peace, love, well-being, vitality, being able to listen to and know and respond to our heart's and soul's deepest desires so that we may contribute more fully with grace and majesty. These yearnings are things that I have known and journaled about and asked for guidance and support for many decades. And then in more recent decades have taught and facilitated and helped guide others into knowing more fully what this is for them as well. Now, it can sound all very mysterious, and I guess it is. But that's just because we like to study things and define them and understand them in ways that match up to what we've already known. But really the mystery here is in both the letting go of what we've known and bringing through the gifts, the wisdom, the genius that you are uniquely here with. And so much of that is what we're going to explore here in nuVolutions. Now, most episodes, can I just say this? I don't imagine will be me talking to you. But I felt like in the first episode, like what an important place to lay the foundation of what we're exploring and creating here together. Now, while I've spent many years receiving the transmissions of this insight and understanding of the 5 soul groups, when I first began to recognize them as people and as information that was being offered to me as a way to course my offerings in the world, I also thought mistakenly that as I received an understanding of each one, that it became this very specific thing, which is part of our conditioning in our culture, isn't it? That we get an understanding of something, we say it's solid, it's real. And that's great for a period of time. And then there's an important time to let what we've made solid also become fluid or mercurial again. And that's what's happened with the 5 soul groups. As I've further opened myself and my awareness to these 5 soul groups, I've also been informed that they are more than I had first taught them to be. That they're less rigid and more magical. And that I can now see and continue to see them changing, not from a state of like they were this one thing and now I see them as something different, but changing as in they're evolving in my awareness. And so when I say that I've been doing this and I'm bringing it to you, that's absolutely true. But the part that's far more important is that we're here together for this conversation. Because what I know now is that these 5 soul groups and the richness that lives within them becomes more tangible, more applicable, more about us participating, more about belonging, and less about fitting into certain categories. And that happens, that more happens from us expanding it together. An example is that today I was talking about the 5 soul groups, and when I mentioned the 5th one to the person I was talking to on the phone, who's quite the seer and masterful healer. And when she asked me about that 5th soul group, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, she added to my awareness about the group. And I can already see the shifts that I was starting to see take new form. So as you bring your perspectives into the 5 soul groups, I know that you too will be adding to not just my understanding, but to our oneness, to our individuality and our oneness, because both are required here. There's you and me, and there's us together. So, and when I say us, you know that it's not just you and me, but you and you and you and you and you and all the yous out there, and me as one of those yous. Like it's us together. All right, so I'm so happy to tell you about this. Let's dive into what the 5 soul groups are. I imagine you're waiting with bated breath. Maybe not like that. All right, so while I remember these and I say them in this particular order every single time, what I also know is that they're not a hierarchy. They belong on the same sphere, and can just rotate into position depending on which one you're looking at. There's no order in which they have importance. There's no value one has greater than another. And all resonate through each other. All right, so you ready? Here we go. So the first soul group is visionary humanitarians. And I'll come back to each of these in a moment. The second soul group is those who are dedicated to consciousness and sustainability. The third group is those of us who are living our lives in ways that bring forth the feminine, the deep feminine, in honor and in integration to the wholeness of feminine and masculine. It's a lot of words to say. We bring forth the feminine. The fourth group, just recently expanded in my awareness, is healers, teachers, and artists. And the fifth group are millennials, which may or may not have to do with what age you are. All right, so I want to tell you about all of them in great detail, but what I'm going to do today is spend just a moment or two on each of the soul groups. And then when we return for our next episode, we'll start taking deeper dives and looking at the nuances of and examples of people whom I see to be among the 5 soul groups. In future episodes, after we've laid this groundwork, I'll be inviting people who are among the 5 soul groups, maybe you, to join me in these podcasts so that we may continue not to talk about them, but to experience the energy of them as they resonate and enliven you. I find such joy when I think about each of these 5 soul groups. I find in myself a great love and profound appreciation for those of us who are taking the courageous path to answer those calls from our souls and from life that would have us be among the 5 soul groups. Here's an interesting thing I forgot to say. You might recognize yourself in a soul group and then another, and then another. And the truth is that you could be a member of all 5. Now, you might not recognize yourself in all. And at the moment, you might just kind of be curious as to how any of them resonate with you. My guess is that if you hung out here with me this long, you've got some resonance with them. So, 5 soul groups of great change. And it's what we do here at nuVolutions. Today this video marks a declaration of the beginning of nuVolutions. While it's been my baby for many years, something that I've been crafting and studying and researching and testing, nuVolutions is a mystery school where we explore and deepen and find more capacity to live those expressions that the 5 soul groups as they inform us. So whether you are recognizing yourself as a member of 1 or 2 or all or any mix in between, I am really grateful to you for having the courage to choose this time to live, to answer the call that has you be among us. We are in countless numbers. More of us exist on this planet than we have any idea. And yet, one of the paradoxes that we often experience, and I say we because I too have this experience, and I hear this from so many people, is that there's a sense of aloneness, of separateness, of not being understood, of being too much or not enough, or not being able to find the right words, or not fitting in, or knowing that we can't possibly fit in, but as a result, we are then alone. And what I want you to know is you are not alone. The journey is yours. And there are many, 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 many millions of us on the journey too. And each one of us who is among the 5 soul groups, we have our own part to play. And I honor you for playing your part and invite you to join me as we further play our parts together and continue on this journey to creating lived experiences of heaven on earth. The world needs you. Yes, it does. Life needs you. It does. And I want to say that there's a way in which you need you. To live from your heart, from your deep knowing, to find profound trust and courage, and to take the love stand rather than the fight stand, to participate in this time of great change. So, thank you again. I feel like raising my cup to you and to saying thank you for being a part of all of this and what's to come. I hope that as we get underway with this podcast, that you will subscribe and share this and invite the people in your life to join you in these conversations. And I look forward to sharing with you people from all around the world who are among the 5 soul groups and who may or may not have big fame and celebrity and being known, and some who will. And who knows, maybe you'll join me on a show in the future as well. Until next time, my friend. I'm going to say that again. Until next time, my friend. Be well.